Good day, everyone. My name is MELCA LUMAGBAS. In this presentation, I will discuss the topics problem solving through flowcharts 1 and 2, primitive data types, and what about ifs. Programming is not only about writing code. Before creating a program, programmers must first analyze the problem and plan how the solution will work. One of the most common tools used for planning programs is a flowchart. Flowcharts help visualize the steps needed to solve a problem. After creating the flowchart and understanding the program logic, we then implement it in code using programming structures such as if statements to allow the program to make decisions. Additionally, programs store information using primitive data types, which represent the most basic kinds of data in programming. In this presentation, I will explain each topic and demonstrate a sample program using Visual Studio Code. Problem solving through flowcharts 1. A flowchart is a diagram that shows the sequence of steps used to solve a problem. It uses different symbols to represent actions, inputs, outputs, and decisions. Some common flowcharts symbols include oval, which represents the start or end of the process. Rectangle represents a process or instruction. Parallelogram represents input or output. Diamond represents a decision or condition. Arrow shows the decision of the flow. Flowcharts are useful because they help programmers understand the logic of the program before writing the code. For example, we can create a simple flowchart for adding two numbers. Steps of the flowchart. First, start. Second, input the first number. Third, input the second number. Fourth, add the two numbers. 5, display the result. 6, end. Now I will demonstrate a simple program that follows this flowchart. So first, I type hashtag include less than IO stream greater than. Next, using namespace std semicolon, then end main open parenthesis close parenthesis. Next, I add an opening curly braces. Now I declare the variables by typing int number 1, comma number 2, comma sum semicolon. Cout. These variables will store the first number, the second number, and the result. Next, I type cout less than enter first number colon. This line displays a message asking the user to enter the first number. Then I type cn greater than number semicolon. This stores the user's input in the variable number 1. Then I type cn greater than number 1 semicolon. This stores the user's input in the variable 1. Next, I type cout less than, enter second number colon. Then I type cn greater than number 2 semicolon. This stores the second number entered by the user. Next, I perform the calculation by typing sum equals number 1 plus number 2 semicolon. This adds the two numbers and stores the result in the variable sum. Finally, I type return 0 semicolon and I close the program with a closing curly braces. After we run and debug this program successfully, entered first number will appear on the terminal. In this time, I type 12, then enter the second number appears, so I am inputting 23. Automatically, the sum of two numbers appeared, which is 35. Problem solving through flowcharts 2. The second part focuses on applying flowcharts to solve more structured problems. Flowcharts allow programmers to break complex problems into smaller logical steps. When designing a program using a flowchart, programmers usually follow these steps. First, identify the problem. Second, determine the input required. Third, define the process needed. Fourth, identify the output of the program. For example, we can create a program that calculates the area of a rectangle. Now I will demonstrate the program. Again, I begin by typing hashtag includes less than, I always greater than. Next, I type using namespace std semicolon. Then I write int main open parenthesis, close parenthesis. And I open the program block using a curly brace. Next, I declare the variables by the float length comma with comma area semicolon. These variables will store the length, width, and the computed area. Now I type cout less than enter length colon. Then I type cn greater than length semicolon. This allows the user to enter the length. Next, I type cout enter width colon. Then I type cn greater than with semicolon. Now I calculate the area by typing area equals length times width semicolon. Then I display the result by typing cout less than area of rectangle colon less than area less than and line semicolon. Finally, I type return 0 semicolon and close the curly brace. After we run and debug this program successfully, enter length will appear on terminal. In this time, I type Enter length will appear on the terminal, and this time I type 12. Then enter width appears, so I am inputting 25. Automatically, the area of our rectangle is 30. As shown, this program receives the length and width for the user, calculates the area using multiplication, and then display the result. What about ifs? In programming, if statements allow programs to make decisions based on certain conditions. A program may perform different actions depending on whether a condition is true or false. There are several types of conditional statement: if statement, if else statement, else if statement. These are used when the program needs to choose between different outcomes. For example, we can create program that checks whether a student passed or failed based on their score. Now I will demonstrate the program. First, I type hashtag include less than IOStream greater than. Next, using namespace std int main open and close parentheses with. Then I open the curly brace. Next, I declare a variable by typing int score semicolon. Next, I declare a variable by int score semicolon. Now I ask the user to enter the score by typing cout less than, enter your score colon. Then I type cn greater than, score semicolon. Now I write the conditional statement by typing if open statements, parenthesis score greater than or equal to 75, close parenthesis. Then I open curly brace and type cout less than, you pass exclamation mark, less than, end line semicolon. Next, I type else, which means if the condition is false. Finally, I type return 0 semicolon and close the program. The program asks the user to enter a score. The if statement checks whether the score is greater than or equal to 75. If the condition is true, the program displays that the student passed, otherwise it displays that the student failed. This demonstrates how decision making in flowchart using a diamond symbol can be implemented in programming using if statements. Handling primitive data types. Primitive data types are the most basic types of data used in programming. Example include int, which stores whole numbers, float, which stores decimal numbers, char, which stores a single character, and bool, which stores true or false values. These data types allow the program to properly store and manage different kinds of information. In this program, I declare variables using different primitive types. I type int. Am I recording? In this program, I will declare variables using different primitive data types. Hashtag include using namespace std. Int main, close, open and close parentheses, curly brace. I type int age semicolon, float height semicolon, and char grade semicolon. Cout. Then I ask the user to input values for each variables using cout and store them using cin. Cin. Greater than grade semicolon. Finally, I'll display the values entered by the user using cout statements. Finally, this program demonstrates how primitive data types are used to store and display different types of data. Conclusion. Flowcharts are important tools that help programmers plan and visualize the steps needed to solve a problem. They allow programmers to break down complex problems into organized steps, making the programming process easier and more efficient. By identifying the input, process, output, and decision points, programmers can design efficient programs and reduce errors. Flowcharts also help programmers understand program logic before writing code. Once the logic is established, programming structures such as if statements can be used to implement decisions in the program. Primitive data types allow programs to store different types of data such as numbers, characters, and logical values. Combining flowcharts with programming constructs helps create programs that are organized, logical, and easy to understand. And by combining these concepts, programmers can create clear and efficient programs. Thank you for watching my presentation.